Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It has indeed been a pleasure to accord an opportunity to speak with such an audience on IP matter. The topic, as evident that it relates to patent rights for inventors and innovative companies, vis-a-vis that how it helped the health of in masses at large. At the same time, there are provisions in the law ensuring that such patent rights, in lieu of its monopoly, do not harm adversely health of masses at large. I will rather, I would rather introduce my panelists when their turn comes. I would request them to introduce themselves. Now, I would like to go back to the patent rights which each member states or World Trade Organization has to respect for each member state. WTO has come out with an agreement which is called TRIPS agreement, to which India is also a signatory and most of the WTO member states are signatory. That provides guidelines for member states to enact legislation ensuring that patent rights are protected of each member states in the respective state. And also it provides provision that they are not misused at all by these pharma companies or individual as such, which can impact health adversely. You know, in TRIPS agreement, there's an Article 27, which makes it obligatory for each member state, ensuring that each member state have to respect the patents and ensure protection of patents from innovator companies, for innovator companies in the respective states. At the same time, ensuring that these rights are not misused by the innovator and pharma companies, they have provided provision under Article 31, which was further validated and made permanent during Doha Declaration, that if at all anybody tries to misuse the patent rights by not providing a drug molecule or dosage form in sufficient quantity, which is needed for that respective member states, and also ensuring that this is within means of an individual to buy those medicines. They said in such a scenario, this member state has a right to issue compulsory licensing to a local manufacturer, ensuring that the drug is manufactured and made available in sufficient quantity at affordable price. Every member state, including US and European member states, developed countries, they had to enact legislation providing provision for compulsory licensing. In India too has under Article 85, based on certain provisions, because member WTO TRIPS agreement provides guidelines ensuring that this provision is also not misused by any member state. And legislation has to be enacted ensuring all these aspects. For instance, in India, I will request one of the panelists to rather take these aspects in India perspective. For example, in European countries who are developed countries, they did not want this aspect of compulsory licensing to be misused. Therefore, they decided among themselves, we will be rather allowing compulsory licensing, ensuring the patent rights are also protected. At the same time, drugs are made available to the masses at large in developing countries who do not have neither expertise nor resources to manufacture such patented drugs. Therefore, they say that we will be considering compulsory licensing only for export based on drugs which are protected by patents to underdeveloped or developed countries, not for use in the local market. Similarly, in US too, there has been a provision under compulsory licensing under USC 35 itself, which was enacted, I think, in mid 20s, 2017 or 18, I think, wherein they too have provided, and only Secretary Health has got a right to issue compulsory licensing only for export, not for in-house use in the country. This is a rather matter which can be carried on and being spoken unabated for us together. But looking at the time constraint, I do not want to take more time and would rather, like my co-panelists, they rather share their viewpoints based on their expertise and information they have on this aspect. My co-panelist, first I would like to call upon Dr. Ramamurthy, who is from Newland Laboratory, Hyderabad. He has a real expertise both in chemistry, R&D, and IP, and he must have had, while in job, floatman experiences in respect of how to protect the patent theirs and also innovator companies, ensuring that there is no infringement, and also at the same time ensuring that such rights are not misused. As you know, I would like to cite a simple example of a clopidogrel molecule, which is used for cholesterol control. You know, the product patent of this clopidogrel molecule expired way back in 2010. One of its polymorphic form 2, that they had an additional term of 9 years because a polymorphic patent was also protected and allowed for till 2019. These kind of protections are provided to pharma companies who spend a lot of money in R&D to come up with new drug molecules which are of great importance for the health of individuals, masses at large. This is an example. I'm just citing one of the examples. At the same time, these rights are not misused. India has enacted legislation to bar evergreening of drug patents. India had earlier, because India signed an TRIPS WTO member as a WTO became a TRIPS agreement, signature TRIPS agreement way back in 1995 in Doha, and they had to enact legislation within 10 years, that is 2015. And other developing countries, they had a timeline of 15 years to ensure that such protections are provided to the patents from each member states in the respective state. Now, I request Dr. Ramamurthy to please give his brief introduction, then speak on, Dr. Murthy will be speaking on this aspect in Indian perspective.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. And sorry, actually, I logged in from my mobile due to some network issue here in my laptop. So I log in from my mobile. So coming to the Indian patent versus health, always a critical issue to discuss because both areas are very important. Pharmaceutical patent is a very important area for research point of view, for innovation point of view. For encouraging scientists, patent should be there. Without patent system, there will be no encouragement for the scientific community. At the same time, health is an important issue. Right to health is a constitutional right for everyone. So health is a constitutional right. Right to health is a constitutional right. So these two are both very important concepts. So the thing is, balancing both of them is a very critical issue. So balancing, how its balancing is going on, we go a little bit to the history. I can say that before post-independence, India is totally dependent upon the foreign countries where we import the drugs from the foreign countries. After 1970, the Indira Gandhi government has made that this Patent Amendment Act in 1970, which helped the Indian generic industry to flourish because there is a no product patent in India. This has helped the generics industry to flourish in India. And again, after 1994, there is an TRIPS agreement which has asked the Indian government to sign it. And then from 2005 onwards, we are having the product patent regime. Actually, when Indian government has signed the TRIPS agreement, what Indian pharma companies thought that this is a very great opportunity for Indian pharmaceutical companies also, because the thing is, this gives us a chance of product patent, and Indian companies are also good at the time by the generic, so they thought that they want to launch the product patent, products, innovative product patents in India by using this regime. But unfortunately, what I can say is drug discovery was not that much succeeded in India. I can say only 2-3 drugs has been launched in the last 15-16 years of the period, and one is a drug is of one of the drug is from the Jadis Cadila, and another is from the Alembic. This recent drug one, which one has been one is Alembic one. Alembic versus Ryjan. That's a cancer drug. These two are only two drugs has been innovative drugs came from the India. So what happened? What is the purpose of the product patent? What we thought in India might help is not helped that much in India, because drug discovery is not succeeded in India, unfortunately, somehow. But the government policies are good. I can say that they are doing very good government policies we are having. One way it is we have a compulsory licensing system, which can be useful for the controlling the price, which can be indirectly help the growth of the Indian pharmaceutical industry. So compulsory license, we all know the Glivec case, that Novartis versus Natco, in which it was a very good example how it has gone through. You all know that Glivec one tablet used to pay at 4,115 rupees per, and Natco was succeeded for giving each tablet at 30 rupees. Then the Section 3D case, so this is one of the Section 3 is a very good example of how Indian patent system is very good, I can say, because it stops the evergreening, because the pharmaceutical salts, polymorphs, esters, all are generally considered as is due with a small innovation. Might be in the most of the cases there is no inventive step in those cases. For that reason, Indians patent law is excellent. According to Section 3D, they always ask to show enhanced efficacy. So what mean to say is, we are not totally avoiding the polymorphs or esters or whatever the salts. We want to tell that evergreening should not be happen, and monopoly of innovative companies should be stopped. In that way, Government of India has done an excellent job by introducing Section 3D one way. And another way, the government is very succeeded in introducing the compulsory licensing. And we also have a excellent case of Glivec case, which was very succeeded. But unfortunately, what is happening, that is the one thing we all worried is, recently there is no compulsory licensing is happening in India. Why it is not happening? This is the first question most of the people who are in this field are feeling. The only one reason what I feel is that there is a lot of collaboration is taking place between innovative companies and generics companies. This is stopping of compulsory license. This is the truth. I'm telling the truth, because the thing is, most of the innovative companies are now having collaboration with the generics companies and indirectly stopping of the compulsory licensing in India. So government, there should be some regulatory provisions in Indian government also to monitor this kind of what kind of collaborations is taking between the innovative companies and generics companies. That kind of thing is also very important. Of course, the good part is recently we have a National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority, which controls the prices. That's a good part. Most of the very important critical drugs pricings are the controlled. In that fashion, I can say that there should be one government regulatory which can stop the which can monitor how the collaborations between innovative companies and generic companies are taking place in India. That kind of system will be very helpful. Another way is that in coming to the patents, in most of the cases in India, most of the people are feeling that, especially generics companies, patents are not enforceable in India, whether process patents are where we compare the foreign patents. Lot of copycat thing is going on. So enforcement, how you enforce the patents in India? This is the biggest question is going on. Of course, there is a lot, Section 48 deals with this, and patent law is telling so many rights. But the thing is, lot of copycat is going on. And what I feel is there should be one system. What is happening in Europe and US? There is a patent linkage should be there with the regulatory. So if you patent is linked with regulatory, so whenever any product is approving, there should be regulatory approval only for the patent. So if the patent linkage is regulatory, that gives you more opportunity. If not, what is happening? So many people are copying the things. So that's what is happening in India, because the small companies are medium sized. Lot of technology transfer is happening. The people are feeling that there is a no enforcement. There's a no correct enforcement is happening in India. So the thing is, if there is if there is regulatory approval is linked with the patent, then the enforcement will become more stringent. For example, if someone goes to the CDSCO with the application of regulatory approval of their drug, if it is linked with the patent, then the patent holder and the regulatory linkage will be there, just like what is happening in Europe or US or other countries, developed country. If that kind of linkage is there, then you can enforce your patents. If the enforcement of the process patents or formulation patents are there, automatically there will be more encouragement to the scientists, because most of the scientific community is telling that, sir, what is the need of filing a patent? My patent is not and getting enforced. You are not able to stop someone is copying my process, because most of the scientists coming to me, being I'm heading IPR department, most of the scientists comes to me and compiling that, sir, my process is copying somewhere. And I have no right. And most of the scientists are telling that they don't want to publish what we invented, because they are telling we want to hide something, because what they are saying is someone can copy their innovation. So in order to avoid that one, if you want to have a exact patent system also, because enforcing the patent system is also very important, along with the protecting the rights of the human, because protecting human rights is a very important thing, because the thing is it's the constitutional right for the everyone. So what I feel to say in my feeling is, one way we have to enforce our process patents, generics industry to flourish, our pharmaceutical industry, and enforcing of the patents is very important by having regulatory approval linkage with the patents. And at the same time, we have to monitor what is kind of collaborations is taking place between innovative companies and generic companies. Because if they are collaborating in whatever way they want, unfortunately, there will be no compulsory licenses, and indirectly it will increase the cost of the price of the medicine. So the thing is, one kind of monitoring have to take place in that way from the government side. And the second thing is, there should be regulatory linkage with patent that will help. So what I feel is, both of the sectors are very important sector for the growth of the nation. The thing is, one way we have to, one is the constitutional right, right of the health is the constitutional right. And another thing is very important for the growth of the pharmaceutical industry and scientific community. So definitely what I feel is we have to do little bit study how the things have been going on in other countries also. And at the same time, from the government side also, I think little bit of encouragement should be required for the development of drug discovery side. I can say that, because what is happening, the product patent regime is not utilized properly in India, I can say, because only 2-3 drugs doesn't make any change in our pharmaceutical industry. Although we have excellent pharmaceutical generics industry, but the product patent regime is not being used. So how to use the product patent regime, that is a very important concept. And I think that there should be some kind of encouragement should be there to increase the innovation, especially for drug discovery. I think at least government have to invest more amount, at least in central government organization like CDRI. Of course, they are investing some money, but whatever money, it is useful only up to preclinical studies. But for clinical studies, it requires a huge amount. So that kind of is also important. So one way we also have to concentrate, focus more on discovery rate side. One side we have to focus on compulsory license, which can be helpful for the health. And at the same time, we should also focus on the enforcement of the patents. These are the three things what I want to say. And I will join in the discussion with Segal sir. Segal sir, please continue.
Thank you very much indeed. It was indeed a very good input, very useful information you have shared with the audience. As you rightly said, the patent regime is somehow missing in India. And there has to be collaborative efforts between the pharma industry and the government. For instance, one aspect which Indian government must consider is data exclusivity. If at all, one of the reasons that Indian pharma companies are not investing a lot of money in R&D for new drug molecule is that it involves a lot of money in clinical trials, and success rate, whether it will graduate to a drug molecule, is not more than 20%. For that reason, there is no data exclusivity protection in India, which government must consider. Like in US, there, if a drug molecule is approved by the regulatory authority, US FDA, there is a 3 years data protection, which means within 3 years from the date of approval of the drug in the market, nobody can apply for licensing to manufacture that drug, even challenging patent. That kind of protection should be there. Similarly, in European countries, where a lot many new drug molecules are being invented, and they too have data protection from 3 to 5 years, varying from different member states. That is something which Indian government must look into to see that this kind of aspect is their part of the law, so that we can encourage the pharma industry, so that they're sure within 3 years they have got a full monopoly over the product which they develop by spending millions and millions of dollars. Am I right, Dr. Rama? If you do you agree with me that this is something which is missing in Indian patent law?
Yes, sir, that is true. Even for generic specs also should have a linkage with the patent. The process patent especially is copying just like anything. That's what is happening.
Process patent is something. Drug patent, let me tell you, India has got real expertise in respect of the chemistry. I give you a very simple example. You know, CBS catalyst is a very popular catalyst for stereospecific oxidation.
Yes, sir.
It is Kore, who is a Nobel laureate. You know, B is an Indian, Dr. Bakshi.
Yes, sir.
CBS, Kore, Bakshi, and S is another Japanese scientist.
Yes.
If an Indian can come out with such kind of innovation in US, why not in India?
Yes, sir.
Expertise, somehow opportunities are not there, which can be rather encourage scientists to take this kind of approach. Particularly, pharma sector also have to look at, have to consider how such an encouragement, how such an approach has to be adopted, so that product patent regime is also considered and becomes popular in India. As you rightly said, government laboratories, CDRI. You know, there's a huge budget of government in research and development through CSIR and other government laboratories. Big expertise. Though they file patent, because patent filing and acquiring a proprietary right, if not useful, is a liability. Is a big liability. Unless and until it forms a revenue generation window for the government, which in turn can be used for very innovative research, there is no point.
Yes.
Therefore, government has to evolve certain strategies to ensure whatever proprietary rights are created, for them there is a buyer. Let the patent be a product which is being produced by the innovative laboratories, and there has to be a ready buyer for those products. Instead, they're making the as a showpiece.
Yes, that is true.
So
because
that's a fact.
Because that's what, for example, for a lot of granted patents, we have stopped paying renewal fee also.
I would rather like to cite a very recent example of a product patent protection in India by the multinational company. You know, sitagliptin case, Glenmark and Glenmark and Merck. Recent case, wherein company did not have a patent, patent had a patent for product and salt also. Phosphate salt is something which is used as a API in the dosage form. Glenmark had been making it, saying they are not making the basic product, they are making phosphate, for which they did not have a patent in India. Merck did not have a patent for phosphate salt in India because under Section 3D, being a salt, it could not be granted. So that this will have a beginning. the case went up to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said, though it is a phosphate salt, but salt is of the product. Since
Yes.
product is protected, product is used for making phosphate salt. Therefore,
Yes.
infringement.
Yes. Yes.
The
Yes.
beautiful case study. Beautiful
Yeah.
case study.
That's the greatness of the Section 3D, sir.
Exactly. This
Yeah.
Section 3D and also protection of the
Yeah.
patent.
Protection of the patent.
Rather,
Yes, both are things.
rather takes both aspects into consideration. Protection of
Yes.
the patent vis-a-vis
Yes.
barring evergreening also.
Yes,
Though
sir. Yes.
patent is not protected, but basic patent is protected. Therefore, is an infringement. And
Yes.
Glenmark had to withdraw the drug from the market.
Yes.
Why there the damages are so, there might be an inter-party agreement between Merck and Glenmark, which is not in public domain. We can't say it.
Hmm.
After that, there was another case between Cipla and Novartis earlier, wherein
Yes.
somehow this patent was was considered valid, but no infringement. Why? For unknown reason. We can't comment on that.
Yes. Yes. That's what happens, right?
There has been many cases. As regarding process, as you know, India is the best generic, rather I would say, generic player. Most of the generic players of great repute are from India. Therefore, they do have a big advantage in developing process patents. Particularly, as you know, from market perspective, India is not a big market for pharma. It's the US and Japan and European countries. Process patents do have protection, if at all they are protected in those jurisdictions, because most of these regulatory market, both the companies, they do ask non-infringement statement from the supplier that unless and until it's non-infringing, even the process patents, it's not acceptable. So that indirectly provides a protection. Am I right, doctor?
That is okay, sir. But what is happening for regulatory market? What is you are saying is what is happening? But what is happening is for non-regulatory market. That is where the lot of things are going on. For regulatory market, what you are saying is non-infringement statement they're asking, and we are providing. That is happening. That's I totally agree with you. But the thing is, somewhere in non-regulatory market, for example, if you can export to countries like Bangladesh or Pakistan or some other countries where the things has been taken by copying the process patents existing and they are selling out, there is no control. That's why
No, there I agree. In those countries, unless and protected, there's no infringement. However, since if it is being made in India by generic player and supplying, I think patent owner, based on reverse engineering and proof that claims are being practiced by their competitor, they have all the right to file infringement case.
But how? Yeah.
So
But how we enforce that is becoming a biggest problem, sir.
Yeah. That patent holder has to do a lot of work to ascertain and then indicate there's a protection, but that kind of a protection is not straightforward, but one has to do a lot of in-house work to
that's
ensure that it is whatever process is being used for exporting to a party where though it's not patent, that is falls within the scopes of the claim of the protection of the process. Thank you very much. It was indeed great. Now I will be requesting Dr. Gabriel, as I told you, in TRIPS Agreement 2, it is very much specified that it is up to the member state to decide the national health state emergency.
Yes.
Because this point was raised during WTO meetings by those developed countries that they cannot decide to issue compulsory licensing just like that. There has to be some basis, and we will provide the basis. And there, all the member states, after discussions, whatever got documented, that it is within the discretion of the impacting member state to decide what is the health state emergency and accordingly take a call on compulsory licensing. So that is a big decision.
Yeah, yeah. But recently, in one or two discussions, a few of people asked me, "Sir, why can't we have a process patent regime? What is it earlier, which can help us a generic industry? What is the need of product patent regime in India?" This kind of question, few people asked me, "Sir, what is your view in
No,
that?"
no, I think that is depriving innovative company of the rights. Process patent, I do not agree. Product patent,
Because,
in the US,
yeah,
many times the patents are used by the companies to bar their competitors to be in the market in
yeah,
that particular product or technology. In US, there is a Sherman anti-competitive law,
yeah,
wherein any person, any company whose prime objective is to bar the competitor, so it is a violation of the competition law. Therefore,
yes,
compulsory licensing is rather considered on those cases also. As
yes,
regards compulsory licensing in India, you rightly pointed out recent cases. There has been rather denial of compulsory licensing by quite a few generic companies based on one aspect which is something very surprising, that first condition that a generic company must consider voluntary licensing. They must request that innovator company to issue generic licenses based on the mutual agreed terms and condition. And that indication was given by the patent office for not granting in the recent past, if you remember that. Which,
yes, yes.
I think is a new land. Is a new land, I think, their case. You remember that, if I recall. Which is not true. There some other reasons, maybe pressure from the innovator company or from the country on the
Yeah,
government for their inter-country relationship.
yeah, yeah. That is
That
there.
might
That
be
is
the reason.
yes.
And now, second, my panelist, Dr. Gabriel, who is a real expert and real, I would say, a known figure in the IP sector, particularly for the pharma sector. He has played a very pivotal role in giving the current status to a very one of the top pharma company in India, K&S Partners. He played a real pivotal role in that for pharma sector. He does not require much introduction. He may introduce himself. And now, as you know, in US too, most of the product patents in respect to the pharma sectors are from the US companies,
Yes.
Pfizer, Merck, and likewise, Shearing, and likewise. There, they had a big dominance, innovator companies barring all the generic companies not to enter into their product line and enjoying for years together, decades together, the monopoly rights of their product drug molecules. There too, government rather decided it is certainly not in the interest of masses at large, whose health is being impacted because the prices are so high that it's not affordable by a large number of the masses, large number of the population. Therefore, they had appointed a committee of senators, Hatch and Waxman, to come up with some provision by which this monopoly is somehow reduced to some extent, and these products which unreasonable monopoly rights are not enjoyed by the innovator companies. And Hatch-Waxman has come out with a wonderful strategy which is called Hatch-Waxman rule, which provides a provision for the generic companies to make a drug molecule generic at the early stage, even compared to his patent term. Patent term is 20 years. If at all they say if there is something, they see that this patent is not rightly granted, it has got certain, it does not meet the patent requirement in respect of section 101, 102, 103, and 112. 104, 103, and 112 are the main sections under which the patents are rather opposed. Under they say कि if at all there's a provision under para 4, any ANDA application can be submitted para 4 challenging the patent which is there in the Orange Book. Now I would request Dr. Gabriel to please share his share his views on this aspect of this patent rights and related to the public health. Dr. Gabriel, can you hear me? Are you online? Hello. I was told that since Dr. Alpesh Pathak could not make it for this meeting due to his certainly unforeseeable engagement, and then I was told that Dr. Pathak instead will be speaking.
Dr. Sehgal, I think Dr. Gabriel. No, Dr. Gabriel is joining. He confirmed me, and it's just a matter of a few minutes more because of some technical problem.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, till he joins, Dr. Ramamurthy, and you can continue.
Yeah, we can continue.
But particularly if I request you that you have been talking about the Doha Declaration, para 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So if you can throw some light on para 4 and 5 of Doha Declaration on this issue of public health. Especially keeping in view this COVID-19 pandemic, how it can help, because if somebody invents and then it's a issue of public health only. So though this issue we are going to discuss even in the last session, but then if you can throw some light on that, public health issue.
I think it's a very right rather aspect to talk on in currently ongoing COVID situation. As you know, in COVID, many companies are investing millions and millions to find solutions to this ongoing pandemic. At the same time, as we have been talking, that misuse of patent rights, any company coming out with the wonderful solutions to this problem, though they deserve returns from their investments and on their efforts, at the same time, it should not be misused and it should be available to masses at large who are indeed suffering from this pandemic. I personally feel that in Indian scenario, I'm referring to vaccination, whatever vaccination that is Covishield and Covaxin, they are being provided free of cost, and government has got a big budget for that.
Yes, that is true, and we have to appreciate that kind of things are going on. Definitely, it is an indication how the public health has been given the right motivation, because most of the people thinks that pharmaceutical patents is stopping and it is giving there have heard from so many people that pharmaceutical patents is giving wrong direction to right to health. But this is a best example how the pharmacy, though the new innovation is there in this case of Covishield or Covaxin, but they are giving it for free of cost. This is a good example you given.
It's a good case. At the same time, I think in compulsory licensing, as we have been discussing compulsory licensing under Section 85 of Indian Patent Law, there is another Section 92, under which it is the government who decides that these patents which are related to the public health are in the national interest, for which they rather keep it for compulsory licensing, and generic companies can approach government. They do not have to go through the otherwise very lengthy process of voluntary licensing, compulsory licensing. In that case, government should also take into consideration to have provision for enough resources for the innovator companies so that they also feel they are not being misused, making use of this scenario.
Yes.
There has to be a balance of both aspects.
Yeah, that's what is happening now. That's a good thing. I can really say that. That's a good thing what Indian patent law is doing. That's what really I can appreciate in that way.
So that is what at the same time, innovator companies from abroad who come up with solution to this problem, they also rather look at it from the long term. Yes, there's a lot of time by which they can earn all the things, but they also must have public health into consideration in deciding the prices of the product so that it becomes affordable to masses at large. Instead, government making use of in India, in the Indian perspective, Section 92 to have forcefully under compulsory licensing. There has to be a mutual discussions and agreements, and then arrive at some strategies, policies, so that it is win-win for all
Yeah.
involved in this thing.
Yes.
Dr. Murthy, you can elaborate on this. You being from the pharmaceutical director.
Good kind of encouragement is going, sir. There is no doubt in that. Only in how to enforce the patents is the only issue pending. That's the only thing, the major area what I feel, and remaining area is good and well is going on. Another thing is pending is the linkage between the pharmaceutical patents and technology. These are the two issues, sir. Remaining, I think you covered a lot. I think, sir, another speaker panel has joined. I think that he will join the hands.
Hi, Dr. Gabriel. Good afternoon to you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, Dr. Gabriel. I am really grateful to you
In fact,
for.
we have been meeting once in a year during GIPC personally. But somehow, this COVID is enabling us to meet digitally. Thanks to
I'm grateful to him. I'm grateful to him.
we can see each other digitally.
Connectivity is an issue.
Dr. Gabriel, since we
Yes,
are
sir.
speaking on the patents and right to health, we have so far spoken on TRIPS agreement, which provides provision
Yes.
for right to health to the masses at large, and also not at the cost of the innovator companies also, taking into consideration balance.
Yes.
And Dr. Rama had spoken at length how it relates to Indian perspective in great detail. As I've been telling, in US also there's a provision that Hatch-Waxman provides a provision under Para 4 to have a generic to have innovative products in generic form in market at earlier than its patent term.
Exactly. Yes.
So I would be rather grateful if you can rather take it on this perspective and share your viewpoint in this. How patent rights to innovator vis-a-vis right to health in balanced way is in US and other developed countries.
Excellent. Sir, am I audible, sir? Am I audible? And then,
Oh, yeah.
my apologies. My connectivity. I was the audience. They have to promote me to the panel.
Yeah.
Some technical was there. Thank God, I'm with you all. Yeah, the issue now it is we have the Indian territory, Indian scenario. The other one is the worldwide scenario, because the pharma addresses both aspects. When we think of the Indian scenario, but now we know that the vaccine war and many other things are now happening, wherein which we are much predominant and playing a major role. And the Western countries have recognized India as the pharma of the world. So in that context, we need to bridge or have a balance between India and the world. It's our duty to do that. And who are the players in this game? The major players are the pharma companies. The second is the governments. Then the international organizations, WHO and WIPO and so many other international organizations. Then finally, the general public. So there are four partners who ought to play the balance between the international scenario and the Indian specifics. Specific Indian, because we need to work it out. So what happened, this is not today's issue. It has been there for probably about more than 50 years. We've been talking about it. How to bring equitable balance, a fine balance between our own self-interest. See, we have a huge population, and then we have to provide an accessible and affordable drug to our own population. We can't. That is number one priority for that. And at the same time, how we can make the drugs reach in other places as well. So there are two things. And then as we think about the pharma companies, we have two categories. One is the generic and the innovator companies. And then now we have to bridge these two things. Indian patent law has brought in some sort of balance. But now, as the days go by, the balance in getting some areas is getting distorted. So what now at present, as an urgent matter, what we need is this to be fine-tuned so that we will, wherever there are glitches, wherever there are problems, that we need to address it so that now we induce confidence to the pharma companies, both the generic as well as innovator companies. Why I wanted to say that both innovator and generics, because the patent system and the healthcare, they are like two eyes of a person. Both have to be there. It is not that one should disappear and another one can prevail. It cannot. Both will have to be there. And that creating a balance, it's been extremely difficult, and we need to work it out. And it's not. It is not one shot. I have provided a solution to that, and that's not. It ought to evolve day by day. Now, the next stage of evolution we have to undergo, both in the patent law and also in healthcare. So, what are the issues? Main issues we need to address in the patent law is that we have certain provisions under our Patent Act, like Section 3D. We have compulsory licenses. We have BOLAR provisions. And we have the pre-grant oppositions and post-grant oppositions. These are the four major areas under the patent law. The second area is enforcement, which I'll take a few minutes once I complete it. So what are the four areas of now the conflict is Section 3D. It has been introduced with a good intention. No, when I spearheaded the NATCO versus Novartis, I was arguing for the NATCO from the controller till the Supreme Court. The issue was that we need to, whenever the second generation products, polymorph, derivatives, and metabolites, they need to show substantially enhanced efficacy. And the Supreme Court also added one more component, that this substantially enhanced efficacy ought to be shown in an animal body, and that sort of thing. So there is a possibility of two interpretations. Why should I go to the clinical trials and show the enhanced efficacy? Rather, I'm able to show it otherwise. For example, if I'm able to show the bioavailability, which is directly proportionate to the enhanced efficacy, if I show the bioavailability, that's sufficient for me. And then even some extent, if we're able to show the better solubility, that's sufficient in order to show the therapeutic efficacy. So that there are now the evolution has come to the second stage. And as regards the compulsory license, what we need to do is that it's a little long drawn process, and wherein which there's equitable balance between the patent holder as well as the compulsory license seeker who wanted license, that you have to give notice to the other side, wait for 6 months, give them an opportunity for a voluntary license, then you go for a compulsory license. And that sort of a thing. But the process will have to be cut short. You can't take too long to get a compulsory license. Once a patent has not been exploited, when a large patient pool is there, when the cost is affordable, not affordable, exorbitant, the cost is exorbitant, and the drugs are not manufactured in India, it's been imported. These are certain conditions which could definitely call for a compulsory license. We need to think about it. And so we need to make certain extra provisions in order to regulate how we can obtain the compulsory license. Of course, we have the provision in the Patent Act which try to regulate thereafter. But getting compulsory license, it is an issue. We need to make it certain sort of a system for that. And as regards the BOLAR provision, yes, how to regulate even the BOLAR provision? Because the BOLAR provision is an exception. You can deal with the drugs and processes or whatever thing, even when the patent term is there. It's still running. And there again, little bit of fine-tuning we need it. How far we can use the BOLAR provision? It is only to prepare and make ready myself, not only me, even outsiders. Because the bull operation under the Patent Act provides that you can even export the drugs to other side for them to prepare for once a patent expires, then I can go to the market. So there, what happens, how far the patent rights can be curtailed. If 20 people start manufacturing my patented drug and selling my drug to outsiders with a pretext, with a view that they can also now trying to do all the preparatory work in order to come into the market once the patent expires. How far we can take it that one? Because nowhere in other countries, people, they do have OLR provisions, but not to sell and to make money out of that. And then you can prepare, do the clinical trials, prepare yourself so that the patent term expires. You can even apply for your regulatory approvals and then go to the market. But that need to be a little fine-tuned. The third aspect is that the patent term extension, if there's a delay, whether there have to be a patent term extension to be given or not, and that is an issue, but that's not a major issue so long the patents are granted equitably and properly within a term of 3 to 4 years maximum time. If it's done, then patent term extension may not be there. Many other countries have the patent term extension and some sort of monopolies beyond the term of the patent, but we don't need to have that one. But the major issue is that pre-grant opposition, and many of the innovator companies, including the generic companies, now feel that the pre-grant is sort of draconian. The only one aspect which is lacking is that there need to be a time slot provided in the pre-grant opposition. Then we had under the earlier law, we had a time slot. When the earlier system, they were giving about 4 months time, maximum of 4 months time after the acceptance. Now we don't have an acceptance. The stage of acceptance is taken away. Straight away the patents are granted. Earlier there was an acceptance, then there's a stage for opposition, and anybody can file an opposition, and the patent and the thing is inter parties. Both parties can appear before the controller and he'll pass an order. Then the patents are granted. Then the stage of pre-grant comes to an end. So, but that sort of some time limit, it can't be sort of unlimited extension of the pre-grant. Now it happens what? The pre-grants are filed one after another. And I have my own case, one of the cases where the patent eventually granted after 18 years. And the patentee came on and said that it's worth extending. I have to pay 3rd to 18th year renewal. It's worth paying that. It took 18 years because there is a serial pre-grant oppositions filed. And even I have problems with now the Indian companies. I am representing some of the agrochemical companies, and then their insecticide, pesticides, and the chain of pre-grant opposition. And I don't think when they're going to see the merit of the case. That is one thing which it need to be addressed in an equitable manner. So these are some of the things under the Patent Act. Because yes, earlier no product patents. Now in the regime of the product patents, there was a big fear that the cost of the drug will skyrocket. We crossed those stages. Now we have come to the stage where patents should be granted for the meritorious cases. Whenever there's a merit, patent should be granted. And at the same time, how the patent rights to be regulated, we need to work it on this. Then the third aspect is that how, when you get a patent right, which will have to be enforced. You have a litigation going for 6-7 years, multiple litigation, and then you have the various stages, and then getting the ad interim injunction, or what we call the temporary injunction, now ruled out. No courts are granting any temporary injunction. And then now the injunction is granted after the merits, after discussion, both parties represent and then getting. That could take a long time. Fortunately, now the IP rights are now come under the commercial courts. So that will have to be, will be probably in course of time addressed. But the long duration of extended periods of litigation frustrates the patent holder and also frustrates the defendants. They wanted to knock the patent, the bad patent, they're not able to do that. Interlink is on. That have to be addressed. So that is a scenario regarding India. Now, international scenario. So what happened now? India going to be the farmer of the world. So how do you going to interact with the world? Because we have countries like us, developing countries, underdeveloped countries are there who have no infrastructure and other things. The third aspect is that we have the developed countries. They also expect India to supply the drugs to them. That's a new trend. And that is a big market. See, I've been working across the pharma companies. Now, the Indian pharma companies, the targets are abroad, outside. They want dollars because the Indian market is flooded. And it's become so flooded, so complex. They want the better money to be made outside and the immense possibility. So how to do that? For that, we need to take it, we have to abide with the laws of the foreign countries. United States, Europe, Japan, there are such stringent provisions. We need to take that one first up front. Please don't enter into those territories half-baked. I say half-baked, without any preparation. They are very, very expensive. Getting the drug approvals, long drawn, it takes time. We need to prepare ourselves. If we don't prepare, if we don't do the groundwork, it's not. Definitely it's difficult to do. But if you're able to do that, it's a big money. You can easily make enough money, and then also you can sustain. It's not just a viability. You can definitely have a profit-making business. That we could do that. And also, we need to have an international treaty. At present, we have a TRIPS and many other things. But we need to have sui generis, an exclusive treaty by the international organization to regulate this. That where the international treaty is that how the interplay between the manufacturers in whichever country, how the products could be sold and regulated and things like that. So this international treaty is long awaited, and then that will have to be worked out. Once we have a treaty, a level playing ground, and wherein which how the drugs manufactured in India can be lifted to other countries, and wherever there is a need and requirement of some orphan drugs which is not manufactured in India can reach India in order to meet the Indian requirements. That international treaty is missing on the interplay between the seller and the buyers of the drugs. That will have to be worked out. So that is the international treaty which I mean, we have been thinking about it, but I do not know how far it's going to be taking place. So these are some of the thoughts I would like to share. And then if anything more focused, probably I'll be able to take it forward. Thank you, sir.
Sir, I totally agree with your these things, and especially patent term adjustment is definitely a good thing for India also. Whereas patent term extension, I think that it is not required for India because we are not having that much in the discovery side. So I think patent term extension is not required, but patent term adjustment definitely is helpful for Indian pharmaceutical industry, especially for generics companies. And coming to the compulsory licenses, why less number of compulsory licenses are taking place? This is the biggest question is coming nowadays. Maybe I have one other thing in my mind is most of the generics companies are collaborating with the innovative companies in phase 3 of research.
Yes.
This is what is happening. Why compulsory license is not happening? So, what is your views in that?
Sir, I have dealt with this matter extensively because, honestly telling, I'm working for Gilead, pharma company. So that's a drug, and it's an excellent drug. It's an antiviral drug. That is a cure. It's not just a treatment. It's a cure. After probably ever since we have the hepatitis infection, And here is a cure. But because I was handling that Gilead matter in India, that we filed a patent application, and we found about half a dozen pre-grant opposition. I know that they will not see the end of the day. They will not, because it's like a relay. The first pre-grant opposition, we used to have a hearing, and as we come out of the patent office, as we come out after the hearing, there will be another pre-grant. So it's like, then we worked out a business strategy. We had a talk with them, things like that, because why not they offer a license to them? And then, so we called all the opponents. Of course, it's a business strategy. We worked it out, and then now we have crossed the stage. It's not a trade secret. It's not a thing. We had a discussion with them, and then say we are here. We are the pioneers. We are the best. And then even if you wanted to make it generically, you will have lots of problems with it. Would you take a license, non-exclusive license, on a particular price, like per patient, you take the license. So all have agreed upon, because it is not only patent licensing, it's tech transfer as well. We handhold you. It's a win-win situation for both sides. And then also, and we have exposed them. Not only, of course, we had a limitation. Don't come to United States. That's my territory. Don't come to Europe. Don't come to Japan. That's my territory. The world is left to you. And then the Indian companies wanted that I need to supply to the other, like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and all other countries. But exporting and going into United States and Europe is very difficult, because they have a patent. No question of just file a pre-grant, nothing can happen. And then, so they knew that these are not their playing ground. So they say that, well, sir, you give me some more territory, so that when you take it. Because the Gilead cannot come and manufacture. They say they can't manufacture in the US and sell it here, because the cost, they cannot do that. They have to manufacture in India. And already there are people who are manufacturing it. So they don't need to worry about it. Only thing that they need to have some technical support, and then hand-holding, and say that we'll do that, so that your purity and then process improvements can be there. And then also see to that the quality comes out, and eventually they can even send it to United States. That sort of a thing. So it was a win-win situation, and I understand your concern. If a third party wanted to have a compulsory license, they have a problem, because the rules of compulsory license says that is the drug satisfies the requirement of the public. Yes, Gilead said yes, we are satisfied the requirement of the public at a reasonable, affordable cost. Yes, we have done, because our drugs, this patent is manufactured by the Indian companies. And it's made it affordable and accessible and things like that. So a third party who wanted to take a license, even by way of a company, they're blanked out. It's a business strategy. It's worked out so successfully. For the third party who wanted to get a license, they have to now go to Gilead. And they have to discuss and take it. Gilead now stopped giving new licenses, because they said that the things are getting flooded. They wanted to keep that niche thing. So there is definitely issue is that. That's why we need to find a solution to that. For example, a third party, some other company wanted to manufacture the same molecule under the compulsory license, not under the voluntary license. How can they get it? We need to do that. Yeah. But at the same time, we have to see that is still any potential for those guys to come. And because now it's affordable, available, and other things. And if a new third party comes out, there can be conflict among the generics. So now the generics say that we don't want a new player. The generics themselves say that I don't want a new player. They instruct Gilead, please don't give license to any other person. If you give us money, our market will get taken away by some other party, and I'm paying.
Yeah, that's right, doctor.
Okay, Dr. Sehgal, we have two questions from the audience.
Yeah,
One is from Tulip Day. She
yeah.
has put the question that I wanted to ask how we can tap in the concept of patent pools in the context of public health rights while still maintaining the sanctity of the patent right. That is number one. Another question is from Dr. Anil Tiwari, who has asked that do you think that innovator companies should surrender their patent rights in the current pandemic situation? These are the two questions. Dr. Gabriel, I think his connection is missed out or some
I don't know.
technical problem.
He became inaudible
Yeah,
somehow.
no, I think our admin team is doing something.
Yeah.
And just a few remarks before he answers the question, and any of the panelists can answer. But he has wonderfully dealt with the issues by dividing his talk into four paragraphs. One with relation to Section 3D about the efficacy, and second on the compulsory licensing, and third on the Bolar Convention, and the fourth on the pre-grant opposition. And pre-grant opposition and the business strategy about non-exclusive licensing. That was really wonderful and a very good idea. Now, Dr. Sehgal, you are there, and Dr. Ramurthy is also there. I have one thing in my mind about one question. You can take it. Whether the fifth aspect, he has touched about four aspects: 3D, compulsory, and Bolar Convention, and pre-grant.
Yeah.
How do you look at the principles of exhaustion?
Principles of
Exhaustion, international exhaustion, or the national exhaustion, or the regional exhaustion. So, how does it play into this? Like Indian Patent Act, Section 107A deals with it, but there are different about the infringement. So, how does it work in the case of pharma? Can the principle of international exhaustion help the manufacturing of drugs without infringement?
When you say without infringement exhaustion, this all depends upon multiple factors. One of the factor is
because in the European Union they allow there is a concept of regional exhaustion, and within the EU country, even without compulsory licensing, the other country they are free to manufacture that. So, what is the exact position?
No, that's what I'm telling you. When you say exhaustion, because in European countries in particular, they can make use of compulsory licensing only for exporting to underdeveloped or developing countries where they do not have an technical.
No, within the EU, on the principle of regional exhaustion.
There has to be certain factors in respect of whether the patent strength, whether it can be opposed. Like in India, we have got a provision for pre-grant opposition. In Europe, there is a one factor which is called third-party observation, and those any patent holder who rather wants to command a rather monopoly feels. And
Dr. Sehgal, my question is, a little on a different footing, in the sense that I was asked by Japanese government to do a research study only on this issue of international exhaustion. So, they don't follow the principles of international exhaustion, okay, whereas India follows it, okay, and the European Union, they follow the principles of regional exhaustion. So, the right to manufacture that particular patented drug or patented product. So, how does it come in the context of the pharmaceutical? This is just I wanted to know.
No, as I'm telling you, when you say right to manufacture can be either through licensing, voluntary licensing, or compulsory licensing. And compulsory licensing, if at all, Indian government has a right under Section 92 to manufacture any product which they feel is of great importance for Indian scenario. It is for national health. There is a prime need. There is a dire need for this product, and therefore, Indian patent law under Section 92 provides rights to have that particular patent licensable, not through the standard process of compulsory licensing when it has to go through a very lengthy process through the patent office, first trying voluntary licensing and likewise. And any generic player who thinks that they are interested in manufacturing such a product, they have to go to the government directly to get a permission to manufacture such a product in India, instead of going through that formal process of under Section 85. India does have a provision under Section 45.
आप ये बाकी जो दो प्रश्न करते हैं तुलिप दे और डॉक्टर तिवारी, इनके जो दो प्रश्न हैं उनको जरा Dr. Amurthy, you would like to deal with those issues? One patent and the other one,
Yeah. So I will reply towards that innovator issue in pandemic. That question I will answer. I think that the thing is now whatever drugs are available, the two drugs, Covishield or Covaxin, is available at affordable price. And since this patent kind of things are not there, and right to health is happening. So I think that in case of emergency, whatever law is saying, it is applies to this. So I think there is no issue of innovator and health issue. Both are things are balancing, because innovative companies only manufacturing, at the same time it is coming at affordable price. So innovator in pandemic issue, I think that there is not having any such issue at this point of time. So coming to the patent pool. Patent pool is always somewhat controversy issue. I can say that, because the thing is what kind of patents, because people did a lot of investment in the research, and why they will come and use for a patent pool. That may not happen. That much I can say. Of course, people say that there is a patent pool should be there and all those things, but I think it's always a controversial question. I think Sahgal sir will add to that.
No, I think patent pool is something which can be used for cross-licensing.
Yeah.
Because cross-licensing is one very important factor which might be a inhibiting factor for different companies. They cannot use each other when all those patents are of great importance to the individual company's business. There they can have a pool, and from that pool they can consider cross-licensing. I recall GSK had started something way back about 15-20 years ago, patent pool. GSK has made it rather one pool wherein all those foreign companies who had patents which they wanted to license out voluntarily. They say that these are the something for which we do not want to have a monopoly on that. We do not wish to have a monopoly on that. Instead, we want to put them in the pool, and anybody with prior information can use that. I do not know the current status. Whatever GSK has started, Glaxo has started way back in 2000. I think 2010, they started this patent pool. Anybody, any company, any pharma company who had patent, they want to license out voluntarily without any monitor gains, they could make their patent as part of that pool. And that pool was available to the public domain, to pharma companies to select from that if at all they want to license out any patent. And then based on the mutual agreement, those patents can be licensed out. And another patent pool, as I'm telling you, the cross-licensing, wherein any company who rather thinks, there are many companies when claim of one patent cannot be used by another company. And one company which has got a patent on some product, but they cannot use that technology because that does involve use of some other aspects of technology which are not part of the claim, but that is protected by claims of the other company. So both companies are rather trapped that they have some proprietary rights on some aspects of technology, but they cannot use as it involves the technology which is protected by their competitor company. There, such pools can be taken into consideration wherein they can have cross-licensing.
Yes, in US, one such example is Bill Gates. Yeah, in US, that is one such example is Bill Gates Foundation, where they will do good kind of research, and they have some process patents, and they will out-license to the companies in that fashion. That's one of the best example I can say. Bill Gates Foundation, what way they will do patent pools. Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Gabriel also mentioned something about the orphan drugs. Now you see, there is an organization called Indian Organization for Rare Disease, IORD, and there is a similar organization, International Organization for Rare Disease, and they are really working on the orphan drugs. And various countries around the world, they have a special law dealing with the rare disease and the orphan drugs. Whereas in India, the public health, since the issue is of the public health, and the rare disease issue is a very burning issue even in India for the tribals and very poor people who are having rare diseases. So, from your experience, since Dr. Gabriel is not there, though he touched upon this issue, and I am in the managing committee of IORD, which is run by Dr. Ramaiah, who is in Minnesota, and he is a very philanthropic person, Dr. Ramaiah. So I think he had also been in one of our conference, GIPC. So can you throw some light on the orphan drugs, which could be, way out for the rare diseases?
Yeah, doctor, this is a very, very important topic. Orphan drug is something for which few companies come and put in efforts and spend money, because the quantity usable in orphan drug, when it is rather limited to a small section of the society. Rare disease, which is not very common disease.
But the prices for the rare drugs are so high.
Yeah. They are very high.
Not affordable.
In US, there is a special provision for data exclusivity for orphan drug, compared to 3 years for standard drug, 5 years for orphan drugs. That additional 2 years data exclusivity they give in US for the orphan drug. In India, there is no such provision. I think you rather through your efforts.
IORD has already taken up the matter with the health ministry. And Dr. Harshvardhan, when he was the health minister, we had taken up this issue, and something Government of India has assured that they would come out with some policy on the orphan drugs. I just wanted to share that with you, what kind of experience you have.
Otherwise, they're very dissuading for pharma companies to invest a lot of money in orphan drug, as returns are not that attractive for them from business perspective.
Yeah, I understand.
In US, they have exclusivity of 7 years. 5 years is
7 years.
But 7 years is orphan drug exclusivity in US. And of course, in India, Ayush is doing some kind of research on this kind of rare diseases. This is what is the information I have. And of course, Indian government also having a separate institute like it. But what is happening after identifying only government in Indian is taking place. Not we don't have a separate provision what is happening in US as US is happening. But Ayush is doing somewhat, and even not only doing research, they are doing clinical research of the drugs, existing homeopathy or whatever this is, because for the rare diseases, most of the Indians still approach the homeopathy or Ayurveda. Is one of the alternative medicine for the innovative new discovery.
Yeah, Dr. Gabriel is here, and
my apologies.
Appreciating.
Now I've come back in my another mission.
Dr. Gabriel, I just wanted to, rather you had very nicely pointed out, patent term extension.
Yes, sir.
When it takes a lot of time in prosecution. In US, there is a provision under Section 156.
Exactly.
They provide, if at all, there is a delay from the patent office.
No.
Maximum up to 3 years, the patent extension term is possible. However, in India, there is no such provision.
Exactly.
At the same time, I would request Dr. Gabriel, since you might be a member of many committees which we take up the matter with the government, and Dr. Agarwal also. There's a dire need in India, because many a time, due to unintentionally, there is a non-compliance to the patent law in respect of submitting request for examination, that's Form 18, responding to FER. And there is an evidence in support of the fact this has been unintentional. This has not been intentional, and due to unavoidable scenario, this thing happened. In India, controller rather says, no, they do not have any right to consider merits of such application in the light of the scenario based on which this could not be complied with. They reject it. Whereas in US, even if such scenario, they do take into consideration, as it has not been intentional, therefore they give opportunity to the patent applicant to comply at later date with fees.
Exactly.
I think in India, there's a need for such an amendment in the patent law.
Definitely, sir, because this is what even yesterday we had discussed with ASSOCHAM and a couple of other. Yesterday we had a meeting and also with another organization through two aspects. The patent term extension is now not, I think, because the patent office has now geared up. As regards the issuing the examination report, earlier they used to take 9 years and 10 years. 50% of the term will expire before you get your first examination report. We call FER. Now they have removed. Now you can get your examination report in 6 months' time. From the date of filing the RFE, we call a request for examination, 6 to 8 months' time, you will get your examination report. There was a backlog of 2.5 lakh applications. Now the backlog has been dissolved. So that has been now by addressed by the recruiting, more people trained and examination report. Now it has become also a nuisance. For example, I file an application, I'll file my request for examination along with my application. I get my examination report in 8 months' time, 4 months' time, 5 months' time. And by the time, my corresponding application has not been examined in the US and Europe and other things. So the Indian Patent Office is not getting the benefit of the prosecution in other countries. And so whatever we're trying to do, there's a counter. But nevertheless, it is in the hands of the applicant. I no need to file my request along with the application, filing of the application. I can delay for another 6 months because I have 48 months to file my request. So that is in my hand. I'm able to do that sort of control. Instead of taking 10 years, it's not, see, in India, everything goes blow hot and blow cold. You take 10 years to examine. Now you issue the examination report in 3 to 6 months' time. And so, but that is within our control. We can delay the RFE filing after 6 months, 1 year, when my US case and corresponding AP case, Japanese case, how they are going on, are they able to get the things, all my cases are knocked out, so that I can even drop my Indian case, or I can pursue on merit. That is now within my control. But as regards, they're given the stringent deadlines. 31 months you have to file your international application. 6 months' time you have to file your response. And if you want any extension, the 3 months they give, that should be taken before 6 months. Why such limitation? And that US and other countries, we can file a response with an extension fee.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, in the United States, they give 3 months' time. When they issue the action, 3 months' time to file a response, then they give further 3 months' time for extension. But if I don't file my response within 3 months' time, and then I'm filing my response on the 5th month, 2 months extension and my response, I can file it together. But in India, if I don't take the extension within 6 months, my case dies.
Yeah.
So why such unnecessary limitation? And see, these are procedural issues, mere procedural issues. You can't take away my vested right by killing my patent, my rights, by a mere procedure because you not pay the fees. That you can recover it with a penalty and whatever the things. That is very draconian. That is not the right attitude. So that's why we have been also suggesting that, yes, you have 6 months, you have 3 months extension, and I can file my response on the 8th month with 2 months extension fee at that point of time. But if I don't file my response, even by the 9th month time, you can say that case has been lapsed. In the United States, you can file a declaration and ask for an extension. Suppose they give 6 months time, 3 months plus 3 months extension. If I'm not able to file my response, somehow I missed it, I can file a declaration and then they will condone the delay. They can condone the delay. So we need to be a little flexible in this aspect rather than be harsh on the applicant that you need to do these things. that is that one which now we are wanting to say that.
Yeah, it needs to be. I think this issue needs to be addressed in the interest of the applicants. In
Yeah.
US, I recall.
এখন আরেকটা প্রশ্ন ছিল ওটা
Yeah, in US, I recall I come across one case, a patent granted patent because
Yes.
of non-payment of the 11.5-year fee.
Yes.
After having given 6 months extension,
Yes.
this fee was not paid and patent was expired.
Yes. We can restore
Can
that.
you imagine? Can you
Yes.
imagine? Same patent which on record was expired,
Yes.
and competitors started manufacturing that product and selling in US market,
Yes.
and not knowing Section 41 of patent law,
Yes. Yes.
it
Yes.
is right to the director of USPTO
Okay.
to consider the petition of an applicant to reconsider making that patent live again after
Okay.
paying the due fees and justifying that non-payment of the fees has not been intentional. This
Okay.
has been circumstantial.
Yes. Exactly.
You know, that patent which was expired was
That's
rather active, but
Yes.
this has to be within 6 months from the date of extension time.
Yes.
Within 6 months from the date of extension time.
Exactly.
Whereas in India, there is absolutely no such opportunity at all, not possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. That is very. That's see. What
Having a
happens
real
is
case of a patent, I recall because I was involved in that, I had told that party, please do not send your product to US as wait for at least 1 more year, not 6 months, but 1 more year.
yes. Yes.
They rather agreed to their US attorney and started selling the material US, and they were sued.
Yes, but
There was
what
no-
happens, sir? There again, we can build a what you call. There again, we can fine tune it. The patent rights can be restored,
Yes.
provided that already people who have been involved in with a good faith. With
Yes.
a good faith, they started
Yes.
manufacturing. That can be exempted, but the patent rights can be revived,
Sir,
subject to that newcomers do not come.
Section
Dr. Gabriel, there is a question from
clearly
the audience.
says that
There is a
if
question
at
from the
all,
audience.
the matter can
Yeah.
be taken up to the court of law for
Yes.
making that patent live,
Yes.
ensuring if at all they can justify that this competitor company had invested so many $1 billion in R&D
Yes.
during the
Exactly.
time period when the expiry period was there.
That
Based on
balance we
that,
have
they
to.
can take a sensing through the court also.
That's correct,
Okay.
sir. We have a
Or
remedy.
they rather got it extended. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a remedy because
Yeah.
the US is also common law.
Yeah.
US common law is a jurisdiction like India. So when the patent expired, I've done a due diligence and the patent. So I invested money, huge money, and started manufacturing. Don't come and at this point you restore the patent, but leave me alone. Let me start doing it. And they have to buy media. I might pay a nominal royalty to you, whatever that we can work it out. That can be worked, but there's a remedy available before the court.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
Dr. Saidal,
Yeah.
from audience, there is one final question. I think
Yeah.
the time is also getting up. So the question is from Avijit Gandhi.
Yeah.
He has asked, any comments on stringent requirements by Indian Patent Office for filing of the divisional applications? Divisionals.
This is
Oh.
yeah, this
Yes.
is, I tell you, this patent law says unity of invention.
Exactly.
And unity of invention, if at all your original patent application does have a scope of multiple inventions, but in claims you can have a claim only for single invention. However, for other aspects of that invention, you can file a divisional application. That provision is there because if you have in the same patent, those claims are likely to be rejected under
Okay.
unity of invention aspects. So for those, you have to file a divisional application only.
So
Not
Section 16 of the Indian Patent Act.
Pardon me?
Section 16 of the Indian Patent Act comes
Yeah,
in.
exactly.
Exactly.
And-
And moreover, there is a provision in Indian patent law, if at all you do not have a provision for some information which is not part of the original application, you can still file a patent as an addition of patent. Not divisional application, but addition of patent, where you can add certain additional material, but the patent term remains based on the earlier priority of the patent. which is a
Yeah.
rather a offshoot of a divisional application.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Dr.
what
Gabriel,
happens? Sir?
Dr. Gabriel can have some.
Yeah. In case of a divisional application, if you see the history, earlier, whenever we get some problems with the patent office and other things, we voluntarily file a divisional application. We delete those claims and return them in a divisional application, and then we successfully prosecute during when the divisional case is examined and used to get through. But that privilege is now taken away. Now they say that if the patent office objects a set of claims as distinct, or if the applicant feels there is a distinct invention on its own, if I, as an applicant, feels that this bunch of claims define distinct invention, I can also voluntarily file a divisional application. But when an applicant files a divisional application, the patent office used to come and challenge me. They are not distinct. So now there is a real issue of problem. So when I consider that there's a distinct invention from that of the earlier set of claims, I voluntarily file it. The patent office should get it because they get more cases to handle the matter. But unnecessarily, they should not say that, no, I feel it's not distinct. Because the word, what is unity, what is distinct, not been defined. The single invented concept, what is a single, there's not many cases. There are only one or two cases, not from India, from UK and other places we have a case law. But it is, if an applicant feels that a set of claims define distinct, or for some other reason, he can delete the claims and file a divisional application so that he gets another additional chance to prosecute and get it. But now the patent office will have to fine-tune. The patent things to be fine-tuned so that voluntarily divisionals file it, that will have to be recognized and accepted by the Indian Patent Office. Then they have to successfully prosecute, and eventually, if there's a merit, they have to grant it. That sort of thing. And one more concept we wanted to just say that, of course, Dr. Saigal has mentioned about the patent of addition. The concept, the US concept of CIP, continuation in part application, we want in India. I file a patent text specification. When an examination comes up, there are certain points they have an issue. The tables are not incomplete or some other information is lacking. Then what to do? Because I can't add new matter. Under section 59, I can't add any new matter there. So if I have to add some new subject matter, at the same time wanted to strengthen my case, there are only two ways possible. I can file an affidavit during the prosecution before the patent office. I say that, sir, if synergy I have shown, but more synergy I'm showing by way of an affidavit. At the time of prosecution, I file an affidavit. The other way, which there's no scope for the Indian law, is that we call CIP, a contingent prosecution application. That concept is a beautiful concept. In the United States, it's there. We need to incorporate that concept under the Indian law so that if anything lacking, because the examiners read it, according to understanding, they want some more information. Fine. I'll file a CIP. I get the same priority date. It's a new application. I have to pay the fees, etc. But it will have the same priority date. So my priority is not distorted and affected, but I'm allowed to add new subject matter in the text, and to that extent, I'll be able to get protection.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
Yes, sir. I totally agree with this.
Request for continuing examination. RCE
Yes,
is equivalent to RCE of US patent.
Exactly.
Yeah, I also totally agree with this. Definitely, CAP kind of thing is very good for Indian law also, because the thing is, patent of addition, what is happening, most of the things in examination, they are asking about innovative step question, and at the same time, when you are filing international application, again, another more objections are coming. So CAP can definitely solve that problem, sir.
Yeah. I tell you a very interesting case in the recent past itself. During a hearing, examiner controller had a mindset of not allowing claim in the form which my applicant wanted.
Yes.
He rather diluted claim considerably. We take into consideration of applicant's interest. Okay, whatever controller is allowing, let us take that. From aspect on which we want it, we have put it in the application.
Yes.
Another way of making use of digital application for that aspect which controls my development here.
Yeah, Dr.
No,
Sehgal,
no, sir. There's a small issue there. While a patent of addition, the subject matter will have to be new, not disclosed in my parent case. Then there's a clash comes. Then the new matter will only thing inventory step they cannot question me, but the new matter should be patentable and should have novelty. Suppose if it is matter is
So
there in the earlier way, then
not
the only way is a CIP.
The time is getting up. So now it was up to
Rather, we have exceeded time by nearly 45 minutes.
My apologies. My apologies.
Only 15 minutes. No, only 15 minutes. It was to end at 2:30. Since in the beginning we had some technical problem. So basically we have taken the due time only. We have not exceeded time in fact. So it's 90-minute session. So we are having, because now if you continue more, we will have interference with the networking and then the following. From the core of my heart, I convey my heartiest thanks to each one of the party speakers, and all of you are our very, very good friends since the beginning of GIPC in 2009. Gabriel, I know that several occasions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And I'm so grateful to him that at last hour I requested him, because Dr. Pathak could not come. So I requested him, and immediately, that's the kind of relationship we have. So I'm really grateful to all of you, and Dr. Ramamurthy, Dr. Sehgal, and Dr. Gabriel, for wonderful discussion and deliberation on this critical issue of the pharma, the public health, and we are really, feeling enlightened with all the issues being discussed in threadbare manner, including Doha Declaration, para 4 and 5. So on the public health issue, on the pandemic, especially with reference to the COVID-19 situation. So all the issues, Bolar Convention and this Hatchman and Section 3D issues and all related issues have been, especially Dr. Gabriel dealt very nicely with the issue of, this pre-grant and compulsory licensing, blending, and how a business strategy can be done with that. So I'm really thankful, and I also convey my thanks to all the participants for raising questions, which have been, I think, duly answered by all the learned speakers. So with this remark, I would like to, conclude this session and then wait for our networking. And then in the next session, we have Dr. Professor Heinz Gaudar. So I hope that he's a very dynamic person, and he always keeps my words. So he will be there to deal with the issue on the fighting the injunction gap in German patent litigation, the status of the second German Patent Modernization Act. So we will be looking for his deliberation at 3:30. So now we can, end this session. And thank you all very much once again.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thanks
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So go to admin.